Welcome back to episode 343 of the Tallboy Radio podcast. And as we always say, who knows where it goes when the beer flows? While that beer is flowing in a very interesting direction again tonight, as we're going to be looking at a little bit more steampunk. Before I introduce our guest, though, I do have to introduce the man on my left. How you doing, dude?
I'm all good. Evening all, evening the world. I hope you are all well out there in listener land and enjoying whatever it is that you're doing. I'm back here in the UK. It is a fine summer's evening, clear blue skies, temperatures nice and warm, nice and golden sort of time. So yeah, I hope you're enjoying whatever it is you're doing and looking forward to this episode. It's the second or third time we've sort of delved into this particular genre. So looking forward to our guest's take on it and letting him explain a little bit more about what he does.
Indeed. You know, it's probably the first hot day we've recorded on this year, the two of us, I think. And if you remember from last year, us packed into my tiny study is not a particularly pleasant experience. But I'll tell you what will be a pleasant experience. Our guest tonight, Juice, did you want to say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Sorry, don't want to interrupt or jump on top of you guys here. Good evening for you folks over in the UK. For me, it is about 3:20 p.m. in Central Florida, where I'm at, coming at you from about 93 degrees Fahrenheit, which is probably a lot hotter than you would want it to be on your end, and as hot as anybody could expect, especially for the people who are here at FIFA experiencing it for the first time. Humidity is not a joke, but neither is our subject, and I believe you guys asked me to talk about who I am, what I am, and how I came to be where I came to be. And you guys kind of reached out to me out of the blue about, I think it was almost 3 months ago now. It was very surprising. Almost thought it was fake. Had to look you guys up and find that no, it's not. But I guess you guys wanted to talk about what is grassroots leather and what is steampunk for the people who think that it's gone and dying.
Indeed. I always think that, you know, when I reach out to people and then I send, basically I'm a stranger reaching out and I'm sending you a strange link for you to click on and join us on a podcast. I'm always impressed that people actually take me at my word. So hopefully they do what you do and look us up to find out actually, you know, it is a genuine thing, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. That's open to you, and we'll find out by the end of this episode your opinion on us as well, Juice. So tell us a little bit of steampunk then, because, you know, we've had a couple of guests, and as guys said before, we had a guy on last week who talked about the you know, people getting together at the conventions and what have you. Before that, we had Victoria talking about steampunk fiction that she wrote and the novels that she writes. And the thing that we find is when we get people to talk about a subject, whether it's steampunk, whether it's anything else, it means something different to each person. So what does steampunk mean to you?
All right, let's go by breaking it down in the different ways that I've seen it, because this is how I more or less learned it. First thing I saw was a couple people at a convention. Locally here, we have what's called MegaCon, which is Orlando's largest convention. It was about 2006, 2007, and I saw two individuals dressed up in a way that I had never seen them dressed. They more or less looked like something out of a Victorian science fiction. And that is exactly the way that I have come to identify and define what would be what I came to find as a genre. And of course, genre means that it's not just one thing, it's many. It's literature, art, music, definition of lifestyle. It even has to do with architecture. So we're talking almost like Art Deco was, Art Nouveau was, like a lot of the other things were in the past. steampunk became something that can, by definition, be considered a genre. There's music, there's art, there's everything in the lifestyle. Sitting behind me, examples for the people who are watching videos or stuff that I've made since 2012, which is when I got started as the first hat that's over my shoulder there. And because of these two people at the convention, I had to ask, what are you guys dressed up as? And that's when they told me, oh, steampunk. And I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, really, what is this? Come to find the gentleman, Tim, he was from California, the other side of the US for me. He used to do set designs for movies over in Hollywood. And him and his wife had moved to Florida for many reasons. And one of them was to bring steampunk to this side of the world. And back then in about 2010, we started a group that was came to be known as the Central Florida Steampunk Association. And we started a small group of people, about 20 people, getting together at least once a month or every 2 months and talking about the things we wanted to do, what we wanted to make about this. So on Facebook, there still exists a website, a Facebook page called the Central Florida Steampunk Association. It's been very quiet for the past couple years now since COVID, and probably get into that later. But it really was what got a lot of people here in Central Florida really interested in this, and what helped me make what I am today. It's really what got me started and what gave me my first clients and what got me into what is steampunk as a whole, and not just what it is. So for me, it's been a way of life. It's been a way of creating. It's been a way of doing things a little bit differently, admiring the uniqueness of it. By definition, science fiction in Victorian times, or Victorian science fiction.
Yeah.
It's taking the future, what we have now, and taking it back to when it was, what could have been, or looking about what was then and what would it look like if we had everything of the future, say at 20,000 leagues. What would have happened if these people underwater would have had GPS to get around the world? How much faster would have they have done things? Laser technology, pulse emitting lights instead of just harpoons, those kind of things, but still made and wrought with the same hand creation of things.
Yeah.
And having come from an architecture and interior design and a drafting field, that's what I studied. Seeing steampunk as a construction, as something that Gaudí would have loved.
Yeah.
And seeing that was very much what he was envisioning, those very natural, organic things. And if they would have had a little bit more of the brass works, of the gear work, of the function in them, he's almost by definition steampunk in his own right. It's missing just a little bit of things because his vision of it wasn't what we have in the future. It was the natural aspects of what he had back then. But that's what steampunk is. It's the reimagining of what if we were then with the knowledge now.
Wow. And I want to almost just take you back there to something that you said, and you said, a couple of clients. So is this something that now is all encompassing for you in terms of people come to you and ask you to commission certain things, and then you will do that and you will create them, you'll make them sort of bespoke to them? Is that how it works? Because I'm just curious as to how that's developed over time.
All right. So in the initiation of our group, when we did the Central Florida Steampunk Association, I was asked as one of the members, what do you want to do? What do you think you can bring to steampunk? And it was very apparent to me that everybody needed to have some sort of craft. Fortunately, I had learned how to do things with a material that is very unique.
Yeah.
In the way that it works, not in the material uniqueness. It's a very universal material. On the contrary, it's been forgotten. So leather, as many people know, has become one of those things that nowadays is expensive. It's become one of those things that it's like, oh, designer people have leather, not the common folk. In the olden days, everybody had a good pair of leather shoes. I believe it's the Brits that came up with a certain boot that's out there very orange and yellow. And to have a pair of those boots that for us, it's $150, people look and frown upon them. And yet they're still handmade by the same factory. And if there's anything wrong with them, you can send them back to the factory. They'll remake them.
Yeah.
By hand. They'll resole them. They'll redo them. And as long as you haven't killed the leather at the top, you can have a brand new pair of boots.
Yeah.
So things that we used to use, especially materials such as what I'm wearing now, is leather. And it's a very common material, but we've walked away from it because of plastic.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, plastic is a very throwaway material. And we used to have a material that wasn't throwaway. We would use it until we couldn't use it anymore. And then we would reduce it and turn it into other things. So leather doesn't have to be thrown away. A sofa, after it's been used, can be turned into a bag, can be turned into a jacket.
Yeah.
The back of a sofa, if it's made out of leather, that back is a big, huge piece that you can turn into anything.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking at when somebody throwing a leather sofa away, because I'll come in with a box cutter, take out the back of it, and I got a big, huge piece of leather that I can reuse because the back is usually against a wall. It's never damaged unless they have cats. And then you kind of go, okay, I don't want to look at that. So it was March 2012 when I actually officiated the creation of my business because I wanted to do something for myself. And I recognized that leather was one of those things that I could manipulate, one of those materials that I had learned about in my youth, and I can do something with it. And in Victorian times, leather was very common. So why not use that? And then having studied architecture, being able to use a computer to create simple line drawings, which is what a pattern is, I can then use what I know of computer-aided drafting design to create patterns for leather that I can then make, remake, reuse, expand, grow, modulate, turn into whatever I want to. So I took my studies, my fun, my hobbies, and everything else, and I was like, bring it. What do you want me to make?
Wow.
And that's what got started with the first client. And the first client asked me to make a mechanic's belt for tools she had of the 1800s. So she had tools from the 1800s on her. And she was like, I want to put these onto a belt.
Wow.
And I was like, let's see what I need to do. So I started to think, and I asked her to take a whole bunch of dimensions. And again, the computer helps. I can then make things as long as I need to be on a computer, work them out, figure out how to fold and bend and do all the stuff and add the extras and what's called sewing tolerances, like you have to overlap certain amounts of material, or when you bend a belt, your belt size is usually 12 inches. Your belt size is 12 inches more than what your belt dimension is.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to need about 6 inches to one side and 6 inches to the other for both sides. So for you guys, it would be about 12 centimeters on each end. And that's extra material that you don't count, but I have to count it because I have to fold and then I have to add holes to it.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things are learning curves for the person who hasn't done it at that type. So it became one of those things that the business and the hobby were wrought because when I went to a store to buy the material, they had 3 prices. And I was like, why 3 prices? And I find out that if you come in off the street and you buy it, it's X amount. But if you're a club member and you pay into it, it's a little less. But if you have a business, even a hobby business, it's even less than that. So I was like, how do I get a business and come in here at a business price and save myself some money? So that's exactly what I did. I went back, sat out the drawing board, and I thought to myself, how can I make a name for myself that, number one, makes sense? That, number two, is not going to be as ridiculed as my own personal name. And number 3, catchy. And that's the hard part. So since we were in steampunk and everything has to do with brass gears and all that other stuff, I said, you know what, let's go for that. So I created Brass Roots Leather. I went back to the supplier store, which in this case was Tandy. There are many others. And I talked to the guys there and I said, you know what, I'm coming at you now as Brass Roots Leather. I need some materials. And he looked at me and he tried to find something to make fun of me. He tried to laugh at, he was thinking of ways that he could just make fun of the name. He goes, damn it, I can't make fun of your name. And I go, good, I got you. That's great. First step done. You can't goof my name. And he goes, so what does it mean? I'm like, brass roots, because it comes from steampunk and everything's brassy and metallic. And he goes, great use of a name. And then what's the rest of it? I go, I don't know, whatever I make. So then he goes, okay, so what are you going to make? I'm going to go, well, first I need to make a belt, and I think I need a hat. And that's how I made the first top hat back in 2010, 11. And then I made her belt in 2012. And that's how it all got started from there. It's just been one project by voice after another. People like you find out about it and they go, you doing anything? I'd like this. And I look at my calendar and go, I think I can do it. Or I'll put you on the list and we'll see when we get to it.
Wow. Incredible journey. Genuinely incredible journey.
Yeah, amen. Yeah, it's impressive. It really is impressive how you have these ideas and how you then go from a thought to a creation. It's really impressive. And like you say, the hat behind you there on the wall, it looks phenomenal. It looks absolutely fantastic. Yes.
If I don't tear up my display at the same time here on video.
Be careful.
There we go. So, that's for the audience members who like to look at the video.
Look at that.
So that'll get your viewers to actually look at your video instead of your podcast, as you were saying.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is my first official proper leather top hat. This is all handmade. Took about 40 hours or so to make, about a week. Did 3 colors, and as you can see, the inside's nice and worn because I've worn it quite a bit. And unlike the bowler hat, which was prefabricated and made by other people, that's a British felt hat, actual felt hat that I bought here. This one, once I put it on, it's tight on my crown, and
wow,
it's not going anywhere.
No, beautiful.
This is stuck to my head almost with glue, and I can keep at it. And people have recognized me in conventions and other places because they've seen the hat for many years now, and it's like, oh, there's Juice, and they can see me from hundreds of feet away because, yeah, it's tall enough that it stands out. It's not a Lincoln hat, but it is a proper top hat. So I believe this one is about 6 inches. So we're talking about 120, 140 millimeters.
Brilliant.
So,
well, and in terms of obviously the design on there, you've got the gears that you can see on there. Was that a design that you sort of came up with that you felt, oh, that just fits the piece, that fits the hat, or was it a particular design that you'd seen previously, or how did that come about? This was
just me thinking of how to do it and how to make it steampunk, how to make it my own.
Yeah.
Because as many people say here, steampunk is what you make it. There's no rules. Yeah. There's guidelines. There's kind of thoughts and ideas as to what steampunk should be. But there is no set rules. Like, you don't have to do it this way. But we do kind of agree universally, unwrittenly, that it has to start with something that would be used between the Edwardian time and the Victorian times up until the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
That is what is the defined time period of steampunk. If you go into the Industrial Revolution, then you're talking about diesel punk. Things are going to start looking grimier, blackier, more warlike. After that, then you're going to have your solar punk, your nuclear punk, your atom punk, so forth and so on. You have, before your steampunk, you have your clock punk, you've got Western punk, clock punk, and then you also have a few of the other ones. There's probably like 15 different alternative timelines that are in the steampunk type eras. It just all depends on what the machine driving the mechanism is. Steampunk is because it's due to the steam engine. Once you get to the industrial 1920s, that's where it ends. So it's what you have right before that. And for you guys on the other side, it's very Victorian, very Edwardian, and it's right after the Gothic period. But because it's kind of Gothic, it's the running joke online is, steampunk is when Goths discover brown. And, they're no longer black and now it's brown. And in a way it is. Goth has never gone away. It has its own affluence of change, of variances between being all black or now all pink or all pastels or the whites or the nouveau style. I mean, I've seen them now for the past 100 years where they go, Goth has been all of this. And in the last 50 years of my life, from what I recognize as Goth, because I'm Goth at heart, they've had so many different styles, I couldn't even follow them. I still believe in the regular black, drab, Victorian, keep it at, Addams Family style. That's it. That for me is Goth. What used to be hard to find at Hot Topic in the United States. but steampunk became something. So this design was a joke within a joke, because one of the jokes, and you can find the YouTube video of it, steampunk is just throw some gears on it. Not really. It's the inner workings. It's how things move. It's how clock punk becomes. And I wanted to have something that would stand out from being just a regular top hat. Yeah, I have a top hat somewhere. I made that one of my wife's up there, and that's very Victorian, has a lot of other things. That was inspired from an image we found online. And I was like, I like this hat. This doesn't exist. This is somebody's artistic creation. Well, I'm going to bring it to life. I hunted down the artist. I said, you got any problems with me making it? And they were like, you're crazy. I'm like, okay, thank you. And then I put it together, you know? So
how many, I'm sorry to talk over. How many, in a way, of the equivalent of you are there in other states? Is there like a national movement? Because obviously you mentioned that you sort of Floridian based and such, you know, have you reached out to potentially sort of steampunk enthusiasts and leather sort of workers across other areas of the states?
I have failed you in that aspect.
Okay.
Due to my life, due to family, due to what I am here, I haven't really left the state of Florida for what I have done. I have tried to reach out to other people. I have, in many ways, reached people in other places that isn't the US.
Right.
Because I am of Puerto Rican birth and of Latin nationality, I've actually met people online and reached more people in Europe and in Central America than I have in the US.
Wow.
So
wow,
it's like some of the big people that are out there that have made it to the news, that made it to the shows, that made it to the movies and the big conventions and all that other stuff. I really haven't been involved with them.
Okay.
And in many ways, I may have actually gotten lucky. And I only say this from a very select point of view of having spoken to people who know them personally, and I'm not going to name any names, to have been found that many of them were very just copycats.
Right.
Were very idea stealing, were very abusive in certain relations and other things. And I'm going to keep that part of it really short, because I don't want anybody to think that I think any less of anybody else, or I'm putting myself on top of anybody. On the contrary, if other people say that you've done this and that, that's their word against yours.
Yeah, sure.
But I came to recognize that they're just like in any other endeavor, there's good and there's bad. So when I started to find out some of the little shoddy stuff that was going on, I was like, you know, I'm going to keep to myself. I'm going to keep to my clients, people who want to reach out to me. Great. You want to work with me? Awesome. You want to spend a year working on a project with me? I'll do it to the best of my ability, and I'll get you what you want. And I'll charge you what I think it's going to take, and I'm not going to charge you a dime more. And on that, I can tell you I've charged $3,500 for a project that took me 3.5 years to make.
Wow.
And I charged somebody else, because they were a friend of the family, materials, which means they spent $200, and it took me 5 years to complete their project.
Wow.
So I'm honest with my pricing, but I'm honest with myself, and I like to be true to my clients. And that is one thing that I've always stood with. You know, when people have worked with me, I try to be very transparent. I show them my progress. I show them photos. I let them give me input. If they think that things aren't going right, we'll fix it. We'll make it. If it's broken, we'll change it. If it's my fault, I will pay in full. But if it's not my fault, then the client has to take the hit for it. And that has happened. Those are things that I've learned through my actual career, doing architecture, doing design, everything in writing. Even if it's a stupid contract. Hey, I'm going to agree to this, and these are the measurements, and this is this, and it's going to be these dimensions, blah, blah, blah. When I send it to you, I take photos and measurements, and I show you this is what I gave you. Oh, it didn't fit. Who measured wrong?
Yeah. Yeah. Client measured wrong. Not you.
Let's go back to the writing. Let's go see what happened. Did I mess it up? Did I mess it up first? Okay. No, I didn't. Did you put it on? Did you put it on with this? Did you put it on with that? No. So that means the measurements were off. Now we have to rework things. Can I do it with or without? And then I try to help them as best as possible. And I've had 2 or 3 projects where things have gone just slightly wrong. Some of them are just padding. Somebody put it on with padding and it didn't fit. And I go, did you put it on with this? Yeah. Okay, put that back into it and now it'll fit. Oh, like you forgot to measure that you had something that was padded on your body. And when you measured over it, that is included. So now I can't get it right. The other part was, oh, did you put on a complete overall suit when you measured for your belt? Because now you have pieces that are going to be under it. Oh, I needed another 2 inches, a couple centimeters, 50 centimeters is a lot. Millimeters is going to be a lot of difference when you want to have things overlap perfectly. So yeah, I try to work as best with my clients, whether it be making them a hat, which happened recently. They wanted this hat.
Really? You were like, no, not happening. Not going to happen. No.
I can give you something similar, but I can't give you my hat. So I did remake them the hat, and I asked for their measurements, and we got their measurements and everything. And when it got down there, it was tight. It was too tight. So I told them, okay, take off this part, which is this little band. I had actually added double banding here with some foam. So I was like, that might make things tight. So I said, take that out first. After you do that, buy this, stretch it out a little more, get it wet, and stretch it up, and let me know. If it doesn't fit after that, call me and we'll work out something. And if I have to remake it, I will. But it was their hat. It was more or less this style. It did not have this personal tattoo thing on the top of it, which is a friend of mine's actual tattoo. So this is a Puerto Rican flag with a native Indian sun. This is the Taino sun. I stole his tattoo and I put it on the top of my hat. He was a good friend of the family. So when I told him about it, he was like, really? You stole my tattoo? I didn't even notice. And I go, I like the idea. But you can barely see it. I didn't put the colors on it. I just kept it nice and brown. But it's there kind of hiding. And since it sits up top, hardly nobody sees it. Wow. But that one that I made for the lady is dark brown with golds, very vibrant. And it went down to, I believe it was Miami, Florida. So it's here in the state. Somebody I met, and they were like, I want your hat. I'm like, So just
yes, a question I was going to ask really was, and a couple of people sort of mentioned the steampunk movement, and they mentioned sort of Hollywood and a couple of movies that have been made, and I think one of the ones that was sort of bandied around was the Wild Wild West with Will Smith and stuff. So if that is, and that I suppose is the archetypal, that's what people would perceive type thing. In terms of the sort of set design, the costume designs, and all of that, would the people sort of reach out to people like yourself, or would they almost sort of just keep it in-house, for want of a better phrase? Do they reach out to the wider community, the steampunk community, in order to sort of gain ideas, gain sort of designs for that sort of stuff, or not?
If you're talking about just design, I would, and I do as a creator, I try to go to usually the websites that host the artists. So DeviantArt is a very good one. No promotion or pay for any of that. But look up steampunk made by artists, not by virtual, not by artificial intelligence. We're talking actual renderings. It was because of that website that I actually found my first outfit. And that outfit became one of my characters. And because of the group that I was in, we had Tim was one of those creators who was able to make a questionnaire that delved into the psychology of characters. So more or less, you sit down and you answer these questions. There's about 25 of them. And if anybody reaches out to me on my website and they want this, I have it online. I can send you the link. And it is an original character development psychological questionnaire. And by the time you finish answering this, you will know where you are, what you live, how you lived, what you do, how you're going to dress, why you're going to dress that way, and what you're going to be doing. And it doesn't matter the ambience. It could be steampunk, it could be diesel punk, it could be a superhero, you name it. The point is, you answer those questions, and once you're done, you look it over, and it's going to be clear that you're going to have a psyche behind a character. So you want to create an original character like I did. One of my first characters is Juan de la Vega, and he is an airship designer who wears this hat. And unfortunately, he is afraid of heights.
Okay.
So think of a guy who can actually make a ship that flies way up there, filled with hot air and all this other stuff, and people get on them and they're famous everywhere, but he's never flown in one. And he doesn't tell anybody because he's afraid of heights. He has some goggles that actually help him see inside of the ship. I think you can see them above my head. So this was one of the first props that I made. And I had a friend of mine. So these are the Steampunk Airship Designer goggles. And it was one of my coworkers that I worked with at the time. And this is a field hockey mask. I don't know if you've ever heard of field hockey. It's kind of like playing soccer with a stick.
Yeah.
So this is originally a field hockey mask. And one of my coworkers said that he used to do as a hobby, stained glass. So I said, can you please just put scraps of stained glass into this? And he didn't understand it at first, and he did it, and I took it home, and then I brushed it up, and then I used a few other things, and I added some of the little bits and pieces, and then I used rub and buff, which is like a wax paint, and I finished it, and then I brought it back after I put the straps on them, and I put it on the desk, and I said, here, this is your endeavor in the first ever steampunk creation. And he looked at it, and he just went, now I understand. He didn't know what it was. He didn't know where it was going. He had no idea what he was doing was going to be so meaningful in the end. And then when he saw that, and I said, it's because of my character, and because of this, he can see into the airships and see what's wrong with it. And that allows him to have all this vision and all this other stuff. He goes, where'd you come up with this story? And I said, well, that's original character design and what we do. And he's like, that's pretty insane. And when do you do this? And I'm like, well, I'm a dad of 2 kids, and at night they go to bed at 9 o'clock. And from 9 o'clock till about 11 o'clock at night, I go and play for 2 hours in my garage. And that's how I did it. From 2012 on, it was about 2.5 hours a day, just putting things together, whether it was my wife's top hat or some of the other stuff. This is some artwork that some other people have made. There's a box up here behind me, if I can point in the right direction, right above my head here. That was actually an idea for a lamp that I had in 2016. And I finished constructing it last year. It was supposed to be one of those things where I had a scrap box of things. Think of it as like Iron Man in a cave with a bunch of scraps. That was the idea behind it. And it was supposed to be done in one day. It took me 2.5 weeks to do. So just when you think you know what everything's going to do, how long it's going to take to make things, no, it's going to take for so much more longer because everything is handmade.
Yeah.
There's this is stained glass fused into a mask and then leather crafted. 40 hours of putting together a hat. You know, some of the stuff that I've done, some of the questions that you sent me out here, yeah, it took me 2.5 years to make one of the outfits. It wasn't steampunk, but it is all leather. And when you put together an all leather Greek outfit, there's a lot of curves that you have to deal with, and having to get them to be straightened is not easy. And when you don't have the client in your office to measure off of, you're hoping that your numbers are right. So yeah, there's a Canadian version of Wonder Woman that exists out in the world, and it is on my Instagram. If you guys search for it, also on my Facebook page, you can search for it there. All of those are there. My Instagram, I think, has everything that I've made ever since. So it's a good place to see just how much I've done.
Yeah, there's a lot of really, really impressive stuff on your Instagram page. And what we'll do is I'll add a link to that into the notes for the audio episode of the podcast, so people can click on it and
appreciate it. No. I know what your job is, but I'm just saying, if anybody wants to look on mine, I can go search. I forget how much I've done. And many of the times I do one event a year this is no questions asked. And it's called Maker Faire. And here the Maker Faire Orlando has a fair every year, October, late October, early November. And I've been doing it for the past 13 years. Wow. And it's one of those events that I do, and I take my steampunk stuff and I have to lay out my table. I always think I don't have enough. And every time I start putting the table up, I have to stop and go, crap, I have a lot. Because it sits in a bin. I have it in a box in the garage sitting up there, and I don't see it most of the time. I don't see the pictures of everything that I've done. And then all of a sudden I make 35, 40 pieces of something, and then I'm like, okay, no, I actually have done a lot. And every time I go to a new convention, I think, oh, I don't have enough inventory to sell enough. And no, I have way too much. And then redoing my displays always becomes a challenge, because it's like, okay, now I have too much. But it's all been rooted in steampunk, and now I've expanded a little bit into what would be pop culture. So things that have to do with movies and a little bit more. COVID made me stick my foot into other genres. And when I did that and I stuck my foot into Star Wars, very much like the Sarlacc pit, I got pulled down and I found out that these are people who love to spend money.
Yeah.
And when you look at the costuming that goes on to Star Wars, the requirements that these people, the rigorous questions that these people will ask you to make sure that you get it right, oh, it's a whole different ballgame.
Wow. So in terms of that, then someone has an idea for a character, whether that's one that they've seen in a film, something that they've adapted from, from ideas, from concepts, from fiction, and from history. Because there is, like you say, the in terms of steampunk, that Victorian style, it has, those pieces are historically significant in some ways, or there's design aspects that are built into them. And they come to you and they ask you to, to put it together specifically. Is there any challenges? Are there any challenges that you've been given that you just simply, it's impossible?
No.
Good answer.
Up until now, nobody has ever given me something that I couldn't do.
Wow. Amazing.
And even though something I thought I couldn't do, I did. And this is not steampunk, but it's steampunk adjacent. There's a video game out there called, crap, I didn't write this one down. Psychonauts. PSY, the rest of it, Psychonauts. It's a video game. I believe it's for PlayStation. There's a character there that is called Rasputin, of all names. And he is a character that he is an aviator type, and he has a hat that looks like a very simple aviator hat. And the aviator hat would be very much like any aviator hat that you've seen in like World War I. Leather, ear cups, whatever,
Yeah.
blah, 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 with the goggles and everything. Problem is that this hat, and you'll see my photos on Instagram. I encourage you to look at that. This unfortunate piece has no seam in the middle. So when you create normal things for vestments that you wear, the way that we usually do things is we'll wrap a person in plastic, put tape over them, we'll mark all the lines, and then you'll flatten all of the surfaces. Usually surfaces, think of a United States football. It's a series of wedges.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of like trying to flatten a soccer ball. It's very difficult to do. And the way that they've done it is with hexagons and pentagons and that kind of a thing. But the new one actually has swirls, because the way to get the ball to be as round as possible is the shapes have to be flattened and then stitched together. Think of a corset. A lady's corset has these curves. And in order to get these curves right, you have to have things that are not straight. The hat for this character has no mid-seam. So I can't take the pattern and just split it in the middle and do a left and right. I have to take away the mid-seam. That part by itself took me 5 different attempts, with the client living probably 10 minutes away, coming over here 3 times, putting it on their head, seeing where my mistakes were, trying to adjust it, having to take it all apart, restitch it by hand or with a machine, doing it over again, figuring out what was wrong. It was either too high or too low or too open or too this, too that, to get that curve to be perfect, where that perfect part had no inseam and went around the person's head. Every person's head is different, to then fit like the aviator's hat. That was my biggest challenge. Why? Because I'm not a seamstress.
Right.
I'm a designer. I'm an architect. I'm an engineer type. I'm the one that does things flat. This was a pattern. I bought this online. I followed the pattern and I was done with it. I can do that. Having to make the pattern for somebody's head, that was difficult. Right. Having to do a corset for somebody that doesn't exist in my environment, that is in Canada versus the United States. And we're talking, that's an entire country.
Yeah.
They were never here, but when I sent it over, it fit.
Wow.
Corsets
Incredible.
are very difficult to do right. Anybody who has a corset will tell you, corsets that don't fit right will hurt you.
I bet,
Yeah,
And
sure.
and knowing that is the biggest challenge in trying to make something like that for somebody, knowing I could put this and it doesn't fit and it ends up hurting them, and that's on me. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that you have to consider when you make things for people. Things like the box, well, that's just a box. You're going to carry it around and it's a lamp, no big deal. But then I have an arm piece, which is not sitting up there, that you can actually, it sits on the arm and it's a whole greave type of armor piece and it covers the whole shoulder. That's for me. It's uncomfortable after a couple of hours, but nobody else is wearing that. It's just me. But if I have to
Sure.
make it for somebody else, like a client in Brussels for whom I made all of the leather accessories for the Assassin's Creed character, I had to get it right the first time. So there was a lot of stuff that I had to do that involved multiple disciplines in order to be able to get a game concept, which is not real, and bring it to real life. And when you look at all the game concepts, you see that the buckles are backwards. You see that the straps don't actually work. You see that some things don't actually sit right. I made a Captain America that was very steampunk inspired from an online art piece. And part of his shoulder armor looks like it's floating. It literally looks like it's just not sitting on anything. No, I have it. I brought it to life. I've got photos of it in a studio. And yeah, I made it look like it's not actually attached to anything. It doesn't look like it's strapped down. It's
Yeah.
just a floating piece of armor. I had to use foam with leather, with cotton, with dyes, with all this other stuff in order to create a very unique piece to bring to life something that an artist just drew without any consideration as to would this ever really work. So yes, I've been challenged. No, I haven't failed yet. I try real hard not to fail at that. But yeah, there have been some things that I have had to learn a lot more than I've known to be able to do because of what my knowledge is. And my knowledge is unfortunately is not in seamstressing. Probably one of the things that I'll do in the following years is probably take a couple sewing classes to really learn some of those things. Because as many people have said, and even Adam Savage has said, if you can learn how to sew, you can actually learn how to do a lot of things, because sewing entails taking something and putting it together backwards and inside out.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then reversing it and expanding on it in order to get the shapes to fit. So it is a very mental, dynamic, three-dimensional fight to figure how to get flat things to be boxy, how to get a flat piece of very non-stretchy material to curve and also fit the body, which has no straight lines, and we're not symmetrical in any way, shape, or form either. Take a
Sure.
picture of somebody's left and somebody's right, and you'll never be able to match them up. That's
No.
how odd we are,
Yeah.
So-
Can I just ask you, just for the people that are watching, can I just ask you to do one favor for us? Is there any way you can just sort of stand up, because I'm absolutely curious just to see. Yeah, I mean, look at that. I mean, come on, ladies and gents.
That is
I mean, I got a glimpse. I don't know whether you shifted around. I really need to see that, because that is amazing.
that is my work uniform. So when I'm in the workshop, this is nothing but an apron. Really, it's nothing much more than that. It's a very simple thing. Let me get pitched down a little bit. So the top part has my these are tooling spoons. Usually I have a maker stamp in here. I've got some business cards. And then the mid part is the part that you saw. These are the majority of the tools that I use the most. So this is a burnisher for the edges. I have an awl poking holes, the edges for rounding them off. I've got a groover. This is a French awl. This one actually flattens things out, kind of takes a broad space of that. I have a whole bunch more of these. I have a rasp. So this is like sandpaper for the leather, and then another awl. And then at the bottom, I have my stuff for sewing. So usually I have a T, I've got a square, I've got forceps for when I sew with needles, a bone folder, an angle so you get things straight, 6-inch ruler, and I've got a 12-inch ruler for US. They do have metric on the other side. And then of course in my pocket is all the other crappy stuff that I have to have every time I do something, because whenever you do rivet setting, you have to use one of these tools or another. And unfortunately, everything about leather is really about the tools.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
if you don't
And
have them, it's going to be hard to do a lot of things.
Sorry, is that, and again, excuse my ignorance, is that something that you would make? Have you made that yourself, or is that something that you've picked up from elsewhere?
I use Pinterest a lot for ideas for photos.
Sure.
And I have a board there. You can find me very easily. I actually know that one of my photos actually gets pinned a lot. And it happens to be the back and the front of this apron. It's a photo collage of this apron, and it's on my mannequin, and it shows the front and then the back. Because on the back of this one, I don't know if I can show it without messing things up here. So on the back of there is the place where all the straps come in, and then my maker stamp is actually on the back of that.
Wow.
So
Nice.
it's a way of presenting myself in my business. And when I go to my maker places, I usually have this on. So I have my tools, I can craft, I can show other people. I used to walk the dog sometimes because I'd be working in the garage, and then I had a dog and I had to take him out, and I'd walk around here. I'm pretty sure people thought I was some sort of murderer because I have all these tools on me. This black leather apron, some guy walking a little dog around the neighborhood, you know. But it was my own making, because every apron of every business that I have seen is good for the business that it's working for.
Sure. Yeah.
But for leather crafting, in order to be able to do what you need to do, you need to know what you do in order to be able to create. And what I do, I have this as a normal, and I hate to have to be looking for them on the bench. So I'd rather be able to stick them on here and know that I have these on hand. 4 of these tools I use every day, all the time, every single time I go to the bench. Others, I may not use that much, but every time I need them, I'll be looking for them, and I'll put them down somewhere, don't have it. So this helps me. It only has 1 pocket instead of 2. I always thought, why did I do that? But then again, I'm left-handed. So left-handed pocket. It catches all the scraps. I've been able to turn this upside down, and I got leather confetti of all the holes that I've punched on the table. It's hilarious, but yeah, it's, I also have like the midpoint that you see here, because of all the times that I put that all in, is now all busted. The thread's all broken up because that tip that catches it. So I'll probably add a scrap of something here to reinforce that spot so that it doesn't continue to get damaged. Knowing that that's the only spot that's really getting, and this was also an experiment to use a sewing machine that I had here to try to sew the leather, which I then found out wasn't that good to do. I then got a better sewing machine, and then I finished it up with that. So I've had people ask me, you know, will you make me an apron for my business? I'm like, yeah, great. Let's start designing it. We'll sit down. We'll have an interview like I usually do. Because I usually sit down, I interview the people, what you need this for, sit down and do some sketches, just some simple black and white paper, nothing, doesn't take me more than 5-10 minutes to do. Ask them what they want, and then I'll go, okay, if this is what you want, let me now sit down and put this on the computer. Now let me figure out what the estimate is, because then I'll have to figure out what's the square footage or square centimeters of leather, because leather is sold by the square foot or the square meter.
Yep.
But because of the amount that we use, I break down my prices to almost an inch.
Right.
So I'll break down the price to per square inch of the leather. So if a piece costs me $300 and it has X amount of square feet, I'll reduce that and find out exactly how much, because then I'll use a smaller unit to actually give the person their price.
Sure.
Then I'll go, okay, here's your estimate.
Wow.
You know, and then we'll go from there. And if they want it, we'll go from there. The last time somebody asked me for aprons, when I said it's going to be about $250, they were like, we'll talk to you later. I'm like, okay, thank you very much. I didn't think you're really going to want a full leather item when it's going to cost you what it cost me a full hide almost. You know, it's almost $300. So,
but it makes absolute sense that you know, if you're gonna make an apron, that actually you make an apron for somebody that's going to use the particular tools that they're going to use for their job. So an apron that you've made for yourself, for example, would absolutely not be suitable for somebody that is in another job, is in another profession or whatever. So actually it makes absolutely perfect sense that every one of them is bespoke, it's handmade, it's individual. And actually you've got to factor that in, and your, you know, the number of man hours it's going to take you to make. And I'm assuming that when you get a $300 piece of leather, you can think actually, but within that I can then sort of fit in this particular job and this particular job, so that you're not almost you're not overspending in terms of scraps and scrap metal, scrap leather and everything else. So it makes perfect sense to me.
That is correct. And then the other part of it is, I'll tell the person, you're buying this apron, you're not going to need to buy another one.
Correct. Yeah.
You won't need to buy another one. If you have a problem with this apron, you come to me.
Yeah.
You tell me what's wrong with it, and I'm pretty sure that I'll be able to fix it without having to make another one.
Yeah.
Unless you're using it to weld or to actually do something in which you are actually hurting the leather physically, you won't need to have another one.
Yeah. Wow.
It's incredible. Honestly, that apron looks absolutely fantastic. You know what I mean? And the prices you're gonna have to pay if you want a quality item, like Gas says, you have to pay the prices for the quality, and that's just simply how it works. That's the nature of the beast. So one of the things that I've seen on your Instagram is you've got those rather cool tools, but you use a very, very modern bit of technology as well in terms of 3D printing. Did you want to tell us a little bit about that and how you utilize that?
Well, I don't have them here to show them. I'd have to run out, and I don't want to do that for the people who are watching. But yes, 3D printing was one of those things that when I saw it, I was like, I need to learn that. I need to learn that because this is the way of the future. And I did it for myself. But I am the person that doesn't have much time. So I needed to get a 3D printer that works from the box and be done with it. The first one that I got, again, no sponsoring, was a Snapmaker. It was in its Kickstarter phase. I was one of the first people to get one of the very first original Snapmakers. This is actually a 3-in-1 machine. So it can do 3D printing. It can do laser engraving, and it can actually do CNC carving, which means I can put a drill bit on it and I can carve things out of it. So my maker stamp, which is a graphic similar to this, usually it doesn't have my name on it. It's just the top hat, the little thing, and then this area. I have that made out of a plastic called Delrin. It's a puck. It's about 1 1/4 inch, about 60 millimeters in diameter. And it has my logo on it. And it was carved on one of the heads of that Snapmaker machine. And I use that to stamp the leather that's actually on my back. And now that I have an actual leather stamping system, it actually works much better, and I have to remake it because of so much use. And if it is plastic, it's gotten a little beat up, so I need to go ahead and recarve a new one. The thing is, the machine works, and I can just remodify it and do it. So for leather crafting, I made my own maker stamp that would have cost me $300 possibly to have somebody else do in another material, but I wasn't 100% sure of my stamp. Like I hadn't gotten to that point where I was like, I know that this is forever. Was kind of modifying it. I had one version that was the bowler hat with the goggles and then the name Grassroots across the line of it. So it was a very horizontal, almost letterhead type of logo.
Sure.
That's how I started. But that would be too long and it would be a bit of a pain. And to create it, it was kind of simple, but it was but I did that one also just 3D printed. So that one I started with 3D printing, and I talked to some other folks and they told me, well, if you use this material, you can actually hammer on it because that material, when you print it, is impact resistant. So I was like, I need to learn how to do that. Problem is, when you start learning about 3D printing, you start learning about 3D printing materials, and then you start learning about the 3D printing problems, which is some materials have toxic fumes, some things you have to vent, some things you have to deal with. Modifying your machine because they need hotter temperatures and hotter bases and different adhesives and different beds, and it's a whole thing. I'm doing leather crafting. I really don't want to have a hobby on top of a hobby.
Sure.
I have four 3D printers now.
No doubt, all with different setups and temperatures and everything else.
I have stayed true to just using the basic PLA, which is a polyacrylic. It's supposed to be the most non-toxic, less fume, biodegradable material that's out there. It's one of the most economic, the cheapest, and the readily most findable. A roll cost about, for 1 kilogram, it's about 20. I can get it for $12. But the good stuff is usually about $20.
Wow.
You can go a little higher than that. So it's not that bad. It's a 1 kilogram, which is about almost a football field length. Yeah. So you use a piece of thread that's about the thickness of this pen, which is 1.7 millimeters. Now, here's the thing. The reason why I'm able to talk to you guys in both inches and metric, unfortunately, is because in everything 3D printed, it's all metric. So you have to start thinking metric because everything there is metric,
Yeah.
which has helped me. So your filament is usually 1.75 millimeters. The nozzle tip extrudes it at 0.4 millimeters and draws a line of the objects and brings it up and makes whatever you're making. So you have to learn how all that works, how programs slice things, how things get made. But then you go back to what I used to do, which is architecture, which is computer-aided drafting, which is three-dimensional objects from flat objects. So I was very easily able to incorporate what I had known to my computer stuff to create the 3D, to incorporate it with the leather, to then add to the business, to then build on. So I've stayed true to my knowledge and just expanded on what I do. Yes, I've added machines. Yes, I've added cost. Yes, I've added stuff, and I don't want to continue to. Because it's all relatable and I can use it for the leather crafting, which is the cool thing. When COVID came around, my 3D printers turned into personal protection and I started making 3D printed masks and mask holders, and I started sending them out. I actually started handing them out to the McDonald's, to the KFC, to the people who were around here without their knowledge. I just gave them a Ziploc bag and I said, here, give this to your manager for people who use masks a lot. If you need any more, there's my card for free. Something that I could do for 10, 15 minutes, handed them out. People heard about it. The community got together. We all did what we could do. I found out how to make the masks. And then on the front, I could put people's logo. Found out that shop stuff could be done. So I started manipulating the fronts and you could have your own little faces on them, sent them out to families. And then they had their own reusable filtered masks that they could have and use.
Wow.
I tried to make the best of what I could at the worst possible time. But it helped me learn how to do 3D printing and how to bring it into what I was doing here, which was the cool thing. So
I was going to ask
that kind of.
Sorry, in terms of 3D printing, then was there some element of sort of computer coding? Is that how it works? How does it set up in terms of having the ability to understand what it is that you want to do 3D, and then effectively telling the printer or the computer or whatever it is that you've got how that works? Do you need to code, or is it I don't understand how you set the parameters of the 3D printer.
All right, so the short version of 3D printing is you can either find online solid objects. They are titled .stls or .obj files. There's like 4 or 5 different other ones. Those are the 2 typical. And you pull an object offline online from various websites, including and not limited to Thingiverse, Thangs. There's a Prusa Slicer one. There's now so many of them. It's whatever. So those repositories of online things, you can find things like this. And this is the MakeyBot from the Makers Foundation. It even has their little name on it. As you can see, this is about 55 millimeters tall, and it's about 25 millimeters wide, give or take. This is printed at one time with no supports. So this is supposed to be able to be printed in about maybe an hour or so. Usually it's done with almost no supports on the inside, so it's hollow. And they make these, and they have a huge handmade claw machine at the Maker Faire, and the kids can go in and play with it. So this is the filament. The program from your printer cuts it. So think of taking a 3D object and turning it into a slice of paper. And whatever you draw on that slice of paper is a layer. So if you were to make something solid, you would need more pieces of paper. So the layering effect, or the slicing, is what then creates the object drawn as a single line, and the printer's head is just given a modified set of instructions that goes, start here, push some filament, move, start here, keep going, move up, do it again, do it again, do it again. The coding, as you were saying, Gaz, you don't have to worry about that because the program to slice the object is in the slicer program.
Okay.
So that part you don't have to worry about. Now, There are people who really like to get into it, and they like to modify certain things that you can do, like the amount of plastic or the temperatures and things like that. So they will modify the code, which you can look at and read and learn how to read. And it's very simple, very, very basic. And the instructions are not that bad, so that you can personalize certain things. But the slicer program breaks down the object so that its instructions are made for the machine.
Okay.
So it can do its thing. Now, to make this, you have to then know how to take your brain, put it into a computer, and create an object in a three-dimensional space in a program, you name it. There's hundreds of them. One of the easiest one happens to belong to another company, which is Autodesk, and it's called Tinkercad. It's free. It's online. They use it in schools. I happen to be kind of biased because Autodesk is one of the companies that I work with in the aspects of my day job. I use AutoCAD. And that program I do floor plans with. I do engineering plans. I do power plans with. So that's my bread and butter. And Fusion 360, which is another of Autodesk's programs, is another one in which a lot of people use as hobbyists to create objects like these that have also print in place hinges so that they can actually move when they're printed. So you pull them off the bed and all of a sudden they're linked together. And because everything is done slice by slice, you can have objects that move. They're called flexibles, hinges, parametric hinges that will actually interlock, or you can build them as two pieces, put them together and put a piece of filament in it, and that becomes your pin. There is so much. That is its own whole environment that I've had to learn, while having learned a couple of years back everything that had to do with this, in order to be able to put the two together and go, how do I work one with the other?
Right.
And
sure.
then not step away from it, because I've already spent X amount of money on tools, materials, leather, workbenches, places, time in my garage, to now have these machines that need electricity and more materials and other things. PLA, pretty simple. ABS plastic, which is what everybody uses for toys and everything else, a little bit toxic, higher temperatures, need to have certain safeties behind it. If you're going to do stuff in nylon, your nozzles are going to get worn down, because nozzles are typically made of the cheapest material, which is brass. PLA will wear down brass after hours. We're talking hundreds of hours. Nylon will tear through a brass nozzle in a couple of hours. Using carbon fiber, using marble, using wood will mess up a nozzle very quickly. So you will normally need to change to either a hardened steel nozzle or even a ruby nozzle. And those then bring up the cost of how much things to do. The temperature at which each of these plastics gets melted in order to be able to function, also very independently different. But here's the thing, it's all written down. You can go online. You can search for any materials. You can search for the table of materials and printing temperatures, and somebody's put a chart together. There's probably, during COVID, I probably ended following 6 different people who I now have met personally, thanks to the Maker Faire, who've put together things like Iron Man suits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen those online.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
So,
one of the questions I was going to, sorry to jump in. In terms of the strength, and we're sort of talking about 3D printing now, so I'm just really curious. Are they like a plastic? Are they polymers? What's the material? What's the strength of the materials? Because I've heard rumors that, like in the UK, like Ministry of Defence can 3D print like tank tires or tracks or whatever they're called. Is that a thing? I mean, how durable, strong, and are they polymers? Or is it? I mean, I'm going to show my ignorance here. Is it a plastic? Is it a polymer? What's the difference? I don't know.
We've got some talk.
Okay, so the general answer to every single question that you asked is yes.
Wow, really? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Jesus.
Okay. So,
and that's a scary world, by the way, ladies and gents.
So this is an invention of my own. This is something I put together because I needed to put this away easily. So this is nothing but much more than measuring tape.
Yeah.
This thing lies around. You got to roll it up. It's always a pain. So I came up with a design to then just spool it together. If it was a piece of film, old-fashioned 35 millimeter film, which will age me there. But this puts together a 10-foot measuring tape. I have one for the 6-footer. It's a little smaller. It snaps together and it puts in and it holds, and it's got some magnets on the ends of it. So by the time I finish, it just kind of stays in place and I don't have to deal with it. This is made with what's called PLA. It's a polyacrylic plastic.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of the most safest, cheapest, biodegradable plastics. It melts at anywhere between the range of 190 to 220 degrees centigrade, usually attached to a bed at about 55 to 75 degrees centigrade, because that's usually what I print at. Most of the times I'm doing this at about 200 degrees with a 65-degree bed. This probably took about an hour to do.
Wow.
And I've made 5 different prototypes to get it to work the right way. When we're talking things like tank materials, we're talking about more exotic materials that are made up of nylons or carbon fiber.
Okay.
It's still a plastic medium. The difference is the temperature at which you need in order to melt it to be able to be pliable and workable. So this little cylinder with a cap and everything, and this all came from the same thing, which is just a spaghetti string of filament.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what it came from. For the military, it's the same thing. It's just a different material. I can buy carbon fiber and I can print it here, but I have to make sure that my printer can get to the heat temperature at the nozzle that will melt the material in order for it to then do its work. That's where you have to then modify your printer. And there are certain engineers who have gone above and beyond what is necessary to create a printer that can use any material that anybody has thrown out there that isn't metallic to be able to print on their printer. They have used commercial printers that come right off the thing for a couple $100, and they have done modifications until they have got it to where the tip of that can be about 600 degrees, and you can run any material through it.
Wow.
And we're talking 600 degrees centigrade. We're not talking, remember, everything in the 3D printing world is in your metrics. So we're talking, again, 190 to 210 degrees is about the measurement of heat needed to make this pliable.
Yep.
Not all materials behave the same. Every single roll almost always has to be tested to see what temperature I need to get it at to be perfect. Every brand will have a slightly different baking temp to get it right. So if I use nylon, I might have to go up to 250 degrees, where this was 200. My machine may not be able to go up there. ABS plastic, I know, goes from about 210 to about 230. My machine, I think, because of the ceramic and full metal tip that I have, can get me to about 240. That's about it.
Wow.
Other than that, if I want to go any more exotic, I have to make changes. So yes, the military has printers that actually have much larger areas of print. I have one that the print size is 125 millimeters cubed. That's all it can do.
Yeah.
But I have another one that does 250 millimeters. And I have another one that does 300 millimeters by 300 millimeters by 400 millimeters. And that's how I was able to get things like over there in the corner, you can see right above my finger, there's a silver and a gold. Those are actually Mandalorian helmets that I printed here.
That looks so cool.
So back to leather. So yes.
That's amazing. Funnily enough, when you talk about the different sizes you can print in Amsterdam, I've been there. I know you've been there.
Yeah.
I wasn't there when I went there, but there is a 3D printed bridge that crosses one of the canals in Amsterdam.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
I know which one it is. And it was actually done with a computer to determine, this is where my architecture background, because I knew about this one. It's actually determined what would be the least amount of material to be needed to be used to create this bridge to hold the amount of weight that they needed to. And it was almost printed in place.
No
It's
way.
made of metal. So it's 3D printed in a metal using a laser to heat up titanium to create rods in a spider weave type of way, so that each piece, unlike what we're used to seeing of columns and beams, very solid and massive, we're talking these were very thin pieces that the computer continued to take away and take away and take away and take away until it found the least amount of material necessary to create it.
Wow.
That same program was then used to create a Formula One car.
No way. Jesus.
I didn't realize
There is a
that.
BMW vehicle and there is an Audi vehicle that was 3D printed using the same AI type of knowledge. They fitted every single different type of racing car and formula, and it spit out a 3D printed titanium vehicle. All the parts are the least amount of material needed to create that space and place.
Wow, that's sick. That's sick. That's mint.
Yeah, that is incredible.
And all of this stuff I learned because I wanted to learn how to 3D print stamps for my leather.
Oh, that's it. That's the tradition.
I kid you not. This all comes back to me doing things to put onto my stuff to be able to. So now I have 3D printed stamps. I have 3D printed glyphs from Taíno, which are Puerto Rican natural Indian symbols, which nobody has anywhere. So I have stamps of my own heritage in different sizes that I can do. They're all made in my 3D printers. My own maker stamp is made, my own little inventions, holders for the dyes and the paint so they don't tip over. There's a lot of stuff that I've done for myself using those tools and then buying a new one because one broke and I didn't have to deal with it. Now I have to deal with it. So it all comes right back to what we were talking about is, yeah, the 3D printers have a lot to do with making things that I'm going to need at some point. It has nothing to do with weaponry. It has nothing to do with tanks. But I've had to learn about what people out there have done because I've seen a 3D printed boat. And it's amazing how that happens. Yeah, we took a little tiny boat that we used to test our prints, and they said, well, can we make it real? And somebody made a printer big enough, and now they can walk inside the printer, and they made an actual boat that is 3D printed in one shot. And you're like, oh, damn.
Wow, Jesus.
That must have taken the time to print. I can't imagine. You know, if it takes an hour to print a little robot, printing an entire boat must be incredible.
But remember, this comes out at 0.4 millimeters. When you're talking about larger objects, then you use a larger filament. So they will use a filament that's maybe 5 millimeters in diameter coming out of a 1 millimeter nozzle. So the material will then be thicker, faster, more movement to produce. So you can make larger objects with a larger printer when you change the dimensions of the inbound material and the outbound extrusion. So what you're thinking could have been done in a matter of hours.
Wow. Oh, gee whiz. Okay. Yeah, that's impressive.
It's a whole different science.
It is.
Correct. Yeah. In my house, this might take me an hour and a half. In somebody else's printer, using different thickness, they might be able to do this in 30 minutes. There are new printers that actually print at faster speeds than before because we have learned more as they evolved 3D printing. Yeah. Something you can't do with leather. Leather is still slow. Leather is still handmade, hand tapping, hand hammering, hand stamping, you name it. I can't get away with it, but I can make a stamp.
Yeah.
And I can reuse it, and it's a stamp of my own making that nobody else has. So this has helped my craft and many others' craft because we're able to do it. And then you can use that, if you know anything about that, to do what's called void printing or void smelting, where you can actually take this kind of plastic, put it inside of a mold, you heat it up, you melt it out, and then you pour metal into it. And then you cast from the void of the plastic what you want in, let's say, brass or aluminum or tin or steel. So this can actually be done to do metal crafting.
Wow.
I've learned a lot tonight. There's one thing I want to learn a little bit more though before we let you go. So you mentioned earlier on then you created a character, and it's interesting because my first interest in steampunk, I think I mentioned it on the first podcast that we did about steampunk. It was I used to work in a place called Crew, and they had a steampunk fair, and I saw these people, same as yourself when you first saw them, these fantastic outfits, and I just thought, that does look really, really cool. But I didn't realize, so same as yourself, your aircraft captain, that there's a character behind, the outfits that you're creating. So when you said then you go off and you play in your garage once your kids are done, what does that actually entail? We used to, me and him used to be big time into the old fantasy role playing, Dungeons and Dragons kind of stuff. Is it along those lines?
It is. It's more or less the same thing. The difference is that we use it in real life and not in a board game. We'll interact with other people as our characters. We've had tea parties, we've had gatherings, and we've had conventions in which our groups have had like an ask, okay, we're going to do this, blah, 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 and we're going to try to stay in character. So everybody stay in character. And for the duration of the convention, we're no longer Juice. We are Juan de la Vega, airship designer, and I'll be looking out the windows saying, "Where did you see my craft? I'm missing my ship. And did you see this and this person?" And we're talking about one of our other friends who's in character, running around with the tickets for the ship and things like that. And
Wow.
it's a what we call nowadays LARPing, live action role playing,
Role-play. Yeah.
which is nothing more than an expanded Dungeons and Dragons game just brought to
Yeah.
real life. It's reenacting. So creating your own characters for steampunk is nothing more than an extension of the Renaissance Fair type live action role playing type, which comes from the Dungeons and Dragons and all that other stuff, where even the little characters that are done in 3D printing now, I know a few people who have been able to miniaturize. Instead of making their objects bigger, they're able to make their objects smaller. So their nozzles are 0.2 millimeters. And they
Okay.
print things that are this small. We're talking 20 millimeters tall. And those mini figs are what they sell at their booth because that's what they like to do. And they hand paint and print D&D
Wow.
figures. And they create figures
Yeah,
in their little art team things and whatever. And they're miniaturized versions, which they might take an hour to do because they'll slow the machine down very, very slowly so it can work carefully and not melt too much and cool things down enough, because that's the other part. You have something hot and you put it on something hot and all of a sudden, poop, it droops. So you got to work a little slower. So it goes in both directions. So yes, our original character concepts for steampunk that come from stories, that come from science fiction, that come from Victorian times, that come from actual things, happens, places, you name it. I think Tim was one that was working on Spring Foot Jack. I'm trying to remember the name. It's supposed to be a character. Yes. So his character was based on that. He was actually trying to create it in which he was a character. His character could actually jump 10 feet tall.
Yeah.
Using circus things and all this other stuff to actually create a steampunk character that would Spring Hill Jack. He could jump over fences, but he was making it real. I have another character who's the Boiler Breaker, and I don't think there's anything behind me that I could show you of it. I know that one's online. He's his own villain. It's my own first villain, and his creation is he's an English gentleman who lost his farm because the boilers in old UK started to become a problem. And all of a sudden, the steam power became a problem for his farm and nastied up and put everything down. He lost his family. So then he talked to somebody, and using lightning energy, he talked to a person named Tesla, and he created a suit that was then powered by electricity itself. And that's where that lamp comes from. That is supposed to be lightning in a bottle. And that's what charges his suit in order to be able to then break the boilers. So his Robin Hood name is the Boiler Breaker.
Wow.
His former name is Radagast Underwood, and he happens to be the one that goes out and just breaks up all the boilers of the big steam places that just cause a lot of environmental problems. It's my one and only bad character that I have in steampunk. The rest are just generic designs like airship architect.
Wow.
And I have another one that is some other stuff, like the photos behind me. That one's my wife. I have the other one, which is like a photographer type thing. I even got my kids involved in it. So it's been a creation of characters, of stories, of interweaving things, knowledge, friends, reaching out to people of art, finding things, getting inspiration by others, trying to stay true to the nature of it by being my own unique creation, trying not to copy others, which I think is the good part about steampunk. We're not trying to artificially make things that other people mass produce. When steampunk started to become mass produced in China, we kind of started to frown upon it because now you could buy it at the party stores. Now you could buy it in other places that just didn't make any more sense because it was just 100 of the same thing. We liked the fact that buy that. Go ahead, buy that at the store, but then change it, personalize it, make it your own. Don't just buy that and think that's the end of it. Give it a story, give it a background, give it a feeling, give it a context, give it yourself so that it's no longer just something that you buy off the shelf. It's something that took you time to do. The reason why shoes back then lasted so long is because they were made for every person's foot.
Yeah.
The cobblers that still exist, that have shoemakers that have the last, which is what it's called, the little model of the foot. They have to save that last of your foot for as long as they need to, because if you come back, they don't want to have to remeasure and make it. They took time to carve a model of your foot in order to be able to make you another shoe. That's time they spent. That's money they spent. So if they want to make another shoe, they already have your foot.
Yeah.
You'd buy one pair of shoes. You'd break them down. You'd take them back to the cobbler. He'd put a new sole on it. You're back in the same pair of shoes because the top wasn't what was broken. It was the bottom.
Yeah.
And nowadays, what do? We buy a $20 pair of shoes. We chuck the whole thing out. We buy another one.
Yeah. That's very true.
We have allowed ourselves to commercially become too dependent on the fact that we can throw things away and forget that there is a reason why some things are expensive, because they're made for you, not for me. I'll make something for you because you asked me to make it for you, whether it's a hat, a watch band, a belt, you name it. I'll make generic things with no customization that I can then sell on the table. But if you contact me and say, I want you to make me this, there's not going to be another one. It's only going to be one. My hat, I'm not selling my hat. I'll make you one similar, close to it, maybe, but I'm not giving you everything that I have on it. I won't sell you the secret tattoo that's on the top of it. That's mine. Most people don't know about it. When they see it, they're like, oh, what's that? That has nothing to do with steampunk. No, it doesn't. That's me. That's my culture. That's my life. And the reason I made the things for my wife out of art stuff that I found, they're still mine. It might be a rendering that's found online, like my Captain America, like the dwarf that I used as inspiration for my my boiler breaker, like the ideas that I still have of things that I still have a list of things to do. They have inspirational artwork, but when I'm done with it, it won't be the artwork. It'll be my work. And that's where I think steampunk is very particular to the people who make it, the people who have lived it. It is Victorian science fiction, but it's what you make it for, the character that you make, for the life that you live. And you know that it's not going to be something that I'm going to want to throw away. It's going to sit there, and that's possibly going to be a museum piece in some time or world. I mean, that's a plague doctor mask right there. That's an actual plague doctor mask with its hood and the tricorn hat and everything. I did that one for last year. Brand new piece from last year. I had that one planned when COVID came around. I had an idea of walking around my neighborhood in the evening with a lamp saying, send me your dead, just for the hell of it. Because I knew I could, and I never got around to it because I was too busy with other things. So yeah, it's time consuming. So for a family man, it's really hard.
Yeah.
But for those who have the time, for those who have the talent to do it, you know, it's really cool to get around to making those things, to using all these different tools that are coming out now, 3D, laser engraving, cutting things, you know, being able to cut the gears on a laser cutter, being able to make them, being able to use modern machines or actual clock mechanisms. If you have that engineering knowledge, I don't. I'd have to copy a lot of things in order to figure it out. But yeah, I could do it and add leather to it and all that other stuff. And I love to do it. You know, my first client, again, steampunk mechanic, 1800s tools, a belt, was never in my house. I did it with a computer, made a hat for myself. And from there, I just kept going little by little, couple things here, couple things there. I've done Star Wars. I've done DC. So I've done 3, 4 different Wonder Woman. I've done Mandalorian, 5 belts. I've done Paz Vizsla. I've done Bo-Katan. I have a pattern online where a lot of people buy. I have belts for other characters too, for Star Wars. And if anybody ever wants one, you're more than welcome to ask for it, because it's what I like to do. I like to get creative with the things, make things new. It gives you something to do. And as you get older, it gives your brain something to work on, keeps you from dying because you're learning something new every day. It's a hobby that I can do for the rest of my life. I don't have to throw away those tools. Those tools will be there for my kids to sell, for my wife to sell, for anybody to take up later. They last forever. It's a thing that beyond this podcast, beyond this whatever, all those creations will be there for the rest of whatever, even when I'm gone.
And that's cool, you know, and you hit the nail right on the head there. One of the reasons why we do this podcast is because we want to learn something new. And I think we've learned something. We've learned a lot of things new. And to be honest, even just taking us back to the very start, like, you know, I've got a leather couch in my front room there, which I've had for a couple of years. It's in pretty good nick, but I'm starting to think about replacing. But I've just realized the back of it is actually probably more valuable now than the front of it ever was, because it's not been interrupted by my dog or children ruining it like they do everything else in the house. So
and if somebody would have told you 5 years ago that if you would have hit that couch as soon as it was starting to get hit with leather conditioner, some natural oils, let it dry, it would still look brand new, you would be going, uh-oh, I missed something.
Yep.
Yeah. Amen. But no,
you can still patch that thing and it can still look good.
Yeah, no, in all fairness, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Of all, like you say, in terms of leather, it's very durable and it lasts. You know, my kids have ruined just about everything else in my house. That's the one thing that's lasted that they haven't managed to destroy yet. And now the dog's having a pop at it. So we'll see who wins out. I'm hoping. But no, honestly, really, really enjoyable episode, this one. Before we let you go, though, we need to let you give a shout out to where people can find you online. And if people want to pick up a bespoke piece of leather, you know, where can they find you?
Well, I have made it very easy, and that was one of the other things that I worked on very early on, and that is the creation of my company from day one to be uniform. So wherever you see Brassroots Leather, the little bowler hat with the goggles and the little mustache, and it has a little white background with the gold goggles, you will most probably find me. You will find me under the same name. Under Facebook has its own page. Instagram has its own page. It copied over, unfortunately, to Threads. It does have its own Twitter account that hardly gets used. It does have its own TikTok channel. There is a YouTube channel. You can send me an email through brassrootsleather@gmail.com. There is a brassrootsleather.com website where it has everything that I have in inventory in stock to sell, of the things that I've done up until now. I'm open. I had closed my commissions until about the beginning of this year, so I'm opening that up slowly to allow for new projects to come in. I needed some time to do things for myself, like that lamp from 2016 that I hadn't gotten around to. And you know, the list of my other stuff that I would love to get to at some point, but they're not as important as just keeping the business running, because I did it so that I would have money to pay my own way. It's a hobby. My accountant told me not to use the word hobby. It is a business. It is a small business with a sole proprietor that works out of his garage, in which its earnings pay for its tools and its services.
Yeah.
Where my 9-to-5 job that I do plans for a living have nothing to do with it. So what you see behind me was made by my small business, because I learned how to do things and sell my time, my wares, my projects, so that I would get money back, so I could buy more stuff, so that I could make more stuff for myself. It's a very selfish endeavor, but it has always been open to giving everybody else a chance at something of my creation, if I can manage it, if I have the time for it. I still haven't found a challenge I couldn't do.
That's cool.
Wow.
That is cool. Yeah, well, we normally wrap these things up round about the hour mark, but we're near the 90-minute mark now. But I'm not sorry at all, because I've really enjoyed
I
this
warned you.
Yeah, you did. You did, to be fair. You're a talker. And I also said, he's a talker too, but you managed to keep him quiet, which is impressive. Which means you are a talker.
No, look, generally, Juice, you know, it's been an incredible episode, incredibly informative, incredibly educational for me, from a personal point of view. I'm sure for Beans at the same time. And I just wish you absolutely every success in the future in terms of your small business that you run out of your hobby, not non-hobby business that you run out of your garage. And yeah, you know what, I say, I mean, it's flown by. It's an hour and a half, and as Bean said, you know, we normally wrap these things up about an hour, so and it hasn't felt like 90 minutes. It's felt just, you know, it's gone like that. So
see, I feel bad, because you didn't tell me that this was supposed to be a drinking podcast, because you guys have been drinking since the start. You haven't shared it.
Well, look, you know, and we always say, you know, next time you're on, we'll we'll arrange a date. You can talk about your future project. We'll share a beer or two, and we'll sort of say, you know what, we've got a beer here. You can grab a beer there, and we'll enjoy a drink together. But no, last thing for me really is thoroughly enjoyed the episode, and so can't wait to have you on again. If you'd be willing to come on again, talk about some future projects, bespoke things that you're working on. It'd be an absolute pleasure from our point of view to have you back on at some point in the future.
You let me know if my wisdom can be shared any further than this. I will stay within my lanes of what I have. I'll probably be doing a little bit more Star Wars stuff just because I know that is selling more. But I still will probably stay within my tag of doing steampunk inspired and pop culture inspired creations, because I like to do things based on whatever movie comes out. To do things that are a little bit different for people. So it's unique. I try to stay as unique as I can, not to copy a lot of folks and not to get too mass produced type of stuff. Want to have me along? Let me know, man. Let me know. It'd be great. Now I know some folks overseas. So if you're ever in the Orlando area, do let me know. We'll get together, and there's a couple of English pubs around here that I can take you over to, and or Irish pubs if you like those.
We just like
that might be the case, man.
Pubs, yeah.
Any pub will do. English, Irish, doesn't matter. We'll drink. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, no, in terms of doing a second episode, I really like the idea of two guys here that are also born in the early 70s. Star Wars.
Yeah.
I could smell that coming.
Yeah. As soon as you said Star Wars, I was like, let's go there.
Now, I am of the modern belief, and I hope I don't ruffle any feathers of any of your fans and anything, that Star Wars is for the kids, and we need to accept the changes in Star Wars, and we need to accept the modernizations in Star Wars. My boss doesn't feel that way. He's a very hardcore episode 4, 5, 6, and that's it. And I've told him, go watch Andor, go watch Rogue One, go watch this, watch that. And he's like, nope, not going to have it. And I'm like, all right, man. When you go to the creators, they've been telling you they're making it for the kids. They're not making it for the adults. So if you can't think as a kid anymore, you're forgetting what Star Wars is all about. And I think that's one of those things that we also need to remember. Steampunk is one of those things. It was just made for the adults being kids again. LARPing is being a kid again. D&D is imagining things. It's being a kid again. It's going back to the stuff that made us have fun when we had nothing else to do, but we also needed to do something that was non-damaging, non-intrusive, not harmful, just entertaining.
Yeah.
Social gathering, social building, bringing people together. That we need a lot more of that. And the whole political ambience and everything else that is going on with all the ambiguities of the world, we need to try to find something that can start to pull people together and away from the need to destroy what could have been such an amazing future that we thought about when we were kids, and we looked at the Jetsons and said, we're going to have flying cars in the year 2000. Where's my flying car? Where is it? I'm waiting for my flying car to be in my driveway still to this day. So
everybody loves George Jetson. And it's weird because and again we will wrap it up in a minute, folks. But you go back to Back to the Future, where in the year 20, whenever it was, we would have hoverboards, and we would have this, and we'd have this. Yeah, where's that future? Come on, guys, come on, sort it out.
Yeah, listen, Musk's working on it.
We all need to work on making steampunk real, and it's supposed to be science fiction. I think it's time we stop making science fiction and start bringing it to real life. Yeah. Star Trek had an amazing amount of actual ideas that could actually be put together. Like, why aren't we building that? Hey, we're joking about going to Mars. Okay, fine. Let's not joke about going to Mars. Let's actually do it. But stop tearing apart other countries to do it.
Yeah.
There's no need for it. We need everybody's input. We need everybody's manpower. How are we going to build all this shit? I mean, that's some big stuff that we need. How do you make a space station if you don't have everybody involved?
Correct.
Look at some of the anime, having a space station wrapped around the Earth with actual tethered elevators, space elevators that are geosynchronous to it. You need manpower to make this stuff. Yeah, we can 3D print it now. We can do carbon fiber 3D print, and then it can actually make this real. But if you don't have the people to put it together and you're tearing apart countries to do it, how are you going to have the manpower to actually make these things reality? Look at Voyager 1. Unfortunately, just the other day, we find out that the first spacecraft that's gone beyond our solar system just found out that there's a wall that's thousands of degrees out there. I told my kids, I go, you know what that means? We can't leave our solar system.
Yeah.
How? Because we're going to get to the edge of our solar system, which is like inside of a marble that's racing in space, that is boiling, burning hot. So we are a star moving against the rest of the galaxy. How do we get beyond that if we can't land a spaceship on Venus for more than an hour?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think
I think it's more than one episode there.
Yeah, I think, we've got some content. We've got some content there for future episodes, and even before we start on our opinions on episode 4, 5, 6, and beyond, we'll save those for next time. So, listen, as the only right-handed person on the podcast, it leaves it to me to wrap it up. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Juice.
I told you get it wrong. I told you. It's taking him an hour and 35 minutes, but I told you to get it wrong.
I'm so bad with names. Thank you very much, Juice, for joining us. Honestly, I've really, really enjoyed this episode. We've touched on things that I never, ever would have anticipated. I sent you a list of questions when we set up. We've barely touched a one.
Well, there we go. Yeah.
See, I wrote my notes. You touched on 4.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to Showboy Radio, Juice. Welcome to, that's more like every
Pretty
time.
good for us.
Yeah. We'll take 4 out of 20 every day of the week.
But no, listen.
But I tried to keep my answers based on your questions. So I try to get a little bit of coverage into it. So
yeah, absolutely.
I did you clean.
You shoehorned a lot of the stuff in there that I never asked, so I really appreciate that. So
you're welcome, man.
We will be doing another episode, and we will more than likely be basing that around George Lucas's world. So thank you very much.
Hey.
And that just leaves it to me to say that's it for tonight. And next week we'll be back with something entirely different altogether. Take care.
All right.
Friends around the mic, kicking back. All right. Day turns into night. Podcast in the spotlight.